How's it going? My name is Jumpy, and today I'm going to talk about Die Hard 4 and Die Hard 5. No, you didn't miss a video where I talk about the original Die Hard trilogy. Don't worry. I rewatched the first three movies for the first time in over a decade not long before I started doing full movie review videos. But real quick, here are my thoughts on them. The first film is a classic. Bruce Willis is awesome as Detective John McClane. It's funny and perfectly paced, and the action scenes are so well done. It inspired a lot of other movies and has been ripped off so many times. And I love Die Hard, which isn't always the case for me with incredibly influential films. I already liked Die Hard before, but I enjoyed it so much more now. I've never put together a full list of my top 10 favorite movies, but Die Hard would very likely be on it. Then we get to Die Hard 2, Die Harder. This one's a noticeable step down, and it's certainly more ridiculous than the first, but I had a lot of fun watching it. I give it a 7 out of 10. Next up is the third movie, Die Hard with a Vengeance. It's fantastic and very entertaining. It doesn't quite reach the level of Die Hard 1 for me, but it's a 9 out of 10 and also one of my favorites. The fourth movie in the series, Live Free or Die Hard, was released in 2007, which was 12 years after the third movie. It was directed by Len Wiseman, the director of Underworld and Die Hard 4. It's also been over 10 years since I saw this one. At the time, I watched the unrated version of it. It was my least favorite of the four movies, but I thought it was pretty decent. Since it's been so long since I last saw it, let's see if I now like Die Hard 4 more or less than I did back then. Following a government hack, John McClane is tasked with bringing in the hacker who may be responsible for it. This hacker's name is Matthew Farrell, played by Justin Long. When McClane gets to Farrell's apartment, some bad guys show up and try to kill Farrell. McClane takes them out and brings Farrell to Washington, D.C. There, we find out that the villains behind the hack, played by Timothy Olyphant and Maggie Q, are trying to pull off something called a fire sale, which involves taking out the transportation system, financial institutions, and utilities. Obviously, McClane isn't going to stand by and let this happen, so he tries to stop it with Farrell's help. I enjoyed this one a lot. The action scenes are wonderful, and I laughed out loud so many times. We have an instance of shooting a fire extinguisher to blow it up and send a dude flying out a window, running over a fire hydrant and the water shooting up and knocking a bad guy out of a helicopter, and of course, jumping out of a moving car that keeps speeding forward and crashing into a concrete lane divider and then flying upwards into a helicopter. That was beautiful. And there's also more later on. These are so unrealistic and hilarious, and I love the movie for it. I also need to point out that these are all very well shot and edited. I can clearly tell what's going on at all times, which is definitely a good thing. Bruce Willis and Justin Long are great together throughout the movie, and they carry it. Some highlights include the two of them in a helicopter. God damn it, there's a lot of helicopters in this movie. And also them trying to steal a car together. And of course, there's McClane being bad at technology, and a discussion about being that guy who's the hero. Some of the jokes are weak, but not enough to bring the movie down. I really like the scene showing John's strained relationship with his daughter Lucy, who's now in her 20s. Here she's played by a new actress, Mary Elizabeth Winstead, of whoever the little girl was that played her in the first movie. Timothy Olyphant is a blast to watch as the villain, and I like seeing Maggie Q in movies. She's always cool. I watched the PG-13 theatrical cut this time around. There's not much profanity. It does have one moment at the end that would have been better with cursing, which it does have in the unrated version. But otherwise, I didn't mind its absence. There's also very little blood and squibs when people get shot. These moments stand out a little, but all those fun action scenes I've mentioned already didn't need more graphic violence, so it's not a huge deal. Overall, I really enjoyed Live Free or Die Hard. Like the rest of the series so far, I enjoyed it more now than I did over 10 years ago. I'm going to give this one a 6 out of 10. It's not a deep movie, and it's not amazing, but I had a lot of fun, and fun is important, as a Lynn Wiseman once said. Now we get to the final movie in the series, 2013's A Good Day to Die Hard. I'll admit I do like its title. I've never seen this movie before watching it for this video, but I've heard bad things. It was directed by John Moore. He started his career doing short films, and then he directed a commercial for the mighty Sega Dreamcast video game console. I looked this up. It's 90 seconds long, and it's about a corporate spy working for Sony trying to steal a Dreamcast. It's very well done, and I quite like it. I will link that in the description. Because of that commercial, Moore got to make his feature directorial debut, Behind Enemy Lines. I've never seen that movie, but I do have a story about it. One time when I was in middle school, we had a snow day. One of my friends tried to download the movie Behind Enemy Lines. It took the entire day on dial-up, and he and his brother eagerly awaited what was surely the greatest movie of all time. It finally finished, and they started that video, and sadly, it was only the 2.5-minute Behind Enemy Lines trailer. And they were so devastatingly disappointed. Anyway, the director made some John Moore movies after that. The most recent one was in 2016, and it's also the only one of his that I've seen before making this video. It's called IT, and it stars Pierce Brosnan. I really didn't like it, so hopefully Die Hard 5 is better. In the movie, Jack McClane, played by Jai Courtney, is arrested in Russia. His dad, John McClane, finds out and goes to his son. It turns out that Jack is a spy for the CIA, and he gets arrested so he could break out a prisoner named Yuri Komarov. Komarov has evidence that could take down a bad guy named Viktor Chagarin. Things go wrong, much to their chagrin, and now John and Jack have to escort Komarov. First and foremost, I really don't like how this movie looks or is edited. There's too much handheld camera used in dialogue scenes. It wasn't excessively shaky, but it felt out of place and was distracting at times. The action scenes themselves are not great overall. They had very quick cuts and so many awkward zooms that it made me laugh a few times. I feel like it was a bad decision to do this. The scene should have been really energetic. Instead, they just felt very choppy. I could follow what was happening, but it didn't flow well. Most of this is not very exciting, but there are some positives. The big car chase had a fun moment with an RPG. There was a random car getting stuck in the middle of it and pushed around, and John taking a phone call from his daughter Lucy in the middle of it was great. Later on, there's some sliding and a big explosion. Those were alright. The action gets really ridiculous at the end, but it wasn't fun like the last movie was, unfortunately. It also uses way too much slow motion here. The movie felt very short. The theatrical cut that I watched is 98 minutes long, which is the shortest movie in the series by 25 minutes. While the action didn't impress me, a couple of the twists the story took caught me a little off guard, and I really did not expect them to go to one particular location that they went to. There were a few other bright spots. John has a good scene with a taxi driver, which was the first part of the movie I liked after an unremarkable opening. There's a funny scene where Jack and Komarov are discussing how to enter a building, and John just bribes someone in the background, which gets them inside. John and Jack do have some decent scenes together. They weren't as good as John's scenes with Justin Long in the last movie, but they're still a highlight of this one. Ultimately, I like Die Hard 5 better than IT. And even if some of the movie's twists weren't bad, I still think the twist ending of my friend downloading the Behind Enemy Lines trailer when he thought it was the whole movie is better. Better story overall, too. Maybe John Moore can return and make his next film about that. Call it The Download. To me, Die Hard 5 is the weakest movie in the series. There are a few fun bits and interactions, and it doesn't feel too long. But the action itself isn't particularly great. It's mediocre, but I can't get too mad at it. I'm giving it a 4 out of 10. On screen now are my ratings for the Die Hard films. This means my average rating for this series is a 7.2 out of 10, which is very good for a franchise that has 5 movies. I highly recommend this series. You don't need to go out of your way to see the last one. If you get a collection that comes with it, you might as well check it out once. Thank you all for watching.